about 10th hour to go. So this Blue Nano insert edge, I've used it on a job previous to this one, similar cuts and similar depth and everything, and it's done that and all of this on the one edge, and it's still cutting perfectly, and I consider that to be really excellent, seeing that the lathe hasn't got any coolant or whatever. Another thing that I'd just like to mention at this point, as you've seen me using this digital micrometer, I've had this for many weeks now and it's still on the same battery and there's no loss of power at all. There were people making comments when I reviewed it saying that because it stays on basically when it's off, or it does a reading when it's off, if you actually turn the display off and you move the barrel, it has registered that and comes back on with the correct reading. And people say that because it does that, the battery won't last long, and that's totally incorrect. The battery's lasting perfectly, and like I say, I've had it for many weeks. It's cold weather and it's still going perfectly. And it's an absolutely brilliant micrometer, dead accurate, brilliantly made, and I'm really pleased with it. And that's perfect. So what I did then, I just faced down this shoulder and put a very light undercut to take out the radius in that corner, and I turned this larger diameter to clean up, and then when I turn it round in the 4-jaw independent chuck, I can actually use this diameter to actually clock it in. Because I've machined this all in one go like this without taking out from the jaws, both these diameters are dead concentric. So now I can take it over to the angle grinder again and cut this one off a little bit plus here, and then I'll bring it back and set up the 4-jaw independent chuck. So at this stage I've cleaned down everything and I'm going to change over to my 4-jaw independent chuck. I was going to use my Mini Lathe 32 or ER32 collet chuck, but I haven't got a 12mm collet for it, so I'll have to use this independent chuck. And I'd just like to say at this point, if you have bolts that go in the back of the flange here to secure the chucks on the Chinese Mini Lathe, it's best to get rid of those and cut a length of studding for each hole, screw them down as far as they go and lock them solid on the end face. You don't need to use any Loctite or anything, just screw them down as far as they'll go. The benefit of having these studs rather than the high tensile bolts is that the cast iron chuck is softer than the high tensile bolts. If you take the chucks off a lot and put them back on, every time you use the bolts into the back of the chuck, you're actually wearing the thread in that soft cast iron. It's better to have studs in the back there, locked up, and use nuts on the back here, and then you can actually change to the studs if they ever get worn. And you'll actually save those internal threads from wearing out, and I do that with all my chucks, even my ER32 collet chuck there. I've got studs in that, and I do find it much easier to put this on, locate it, and just put a nut on loosely, go around, do the next one, and then tighten up. And I think it's a great thing to actually save those threads. And to lock those studs into the back of the chuck, you can actually use a couple of nuts locked together and then give it a bit of a tighten. It's just so that they won't come loose when you actually undo the nut at the back. So I've made sure it's all dead clean on the register, and I have the nuts and washers up here already. I have a marker on mine so it lines up each time. Just put one washer on there like that, leave it tilted forward like that so you can get the nut in at the back, and just screw one of those on, a few threads. Then you can go round and do the same with the other one. So now I've put it back up into the lathe in the independent chuck again and clocked it in, and now I'm going to turn the diameter to fit the bore of the actual slitting saw, and that's 1 inch. And I've set the depth stop so the turn will go down about 60 thou. So that's shallower cut than the actual width of the saw, which is 2mm. And that one's a nice tight fit. I think I'll leave it at that. And that one's running absolutely dead true. And lastly, before I take it out, I've got a stainless steel bolt which I've cut down, and a couple of nice sized washers which are bigger than the actual bore diameter there of 1 inch. They will go on the front to lock the saw on, and I can tighten it with a 13mm spanner, which I like better than using an Allen key. And before I take this out, I'm going to just face this bolt off here and just do a centre drill in it. And that's so I can use the slitting saw with a live centre. So this is the finished product, and I'm really pleased the way it's turned out and the fact that it's stainless steel. This one here I bought many years ago. This one's actually got concentricity problems and runs out. I think it was made in India. This one also has steps on the front here for taking different diameter bore slitting saws. Plus it can actually take any width of saw because it has a cup end that secures the saw onto it. And I will do the same to mine at some point. I shall make up a cup end to go on this one out of stainless steel, and all that you need to do is actually bore the cup end out so that the actual bore diameter is larger than the diameter that's been turned on the front end here. In this case it's 1 inch, and then it will actually clamp the thinner slitting saws in between that as well.